So Tesla generally aims to release software updates about every 4 weeks. I'd say they were a bit behind on 2020.32, but today we've seen the release of 2020.36.3.1. Lengthy title, I know, and actually surprisingly the title probably takes longer to say than the improvements that they've made to it. So if we look at the updates that have actually been added on this software update, and there's only actually 2 to 2020.36.3, and they are speed assist improvements and setting cruise control improvements. And although that sounds like there's not massive improvements, I think actually from a day-to-day usability of the car, it's going to make quite a significant difference. We've not had speed limit sign recognition since I think hardware version maybe 1, I could be wrong, and that's when basically Elon Musk fell out with Mobileye, who have the patent to recognise a traffic speed sign from a camera. The other announcement is that you can now set cruise control to your current speed by tapping the current speedometer that shows in your car status screen on the right hand side. And again, doesn't sound like much, but if you're traveling from a 30 to a 60 and you engage cruise control, it will automatically jump you up to 60 mile an hour, and that might not be appropriate for the situation that you're in. And sometimes the car can accelerate quite quickly. So I'm looking forward to the fact that I can engage cruise control and it might not necessarily take me straight up to the speed limit. I can just tap the sign. I'm also interested to see if 2020.36.3 brings new visualizations to the screen as well, which I suspect it might. I'm going to go through some roadworks as well to make sure that it visualizes those, because that was one of the key issues, is you go through roadworks that are on a 70 mile an hour road, but actually average speed limit was set to 60 or something like that, and therefore you'd be effectively speeding unless you identified that and slowed it down. So let's not delay any further. Let's get out on the road. We'll do a road test, see if it visualizes the signs appropriately and slows me down or adjusts the speed limits. Right, to start off with, I've come to this tiny little car park because I know there's a 10 mile an hour speed limit sign. And if we go back out, and I'll swoop around and back in, and that will be the first test to see if it visualizes that sign and puts it on the display at all. So here we go, we have a 10 mile an hour speed limit sign coming up. Is it gonna, it's visualized it on the display and changed the speed limit. There you go. Passed its first test, because obviously this isn't a road that you'd normally have the speed limit set to. So it's seen it, adjusted it, it's seen a parking space, God knows where that is. But yeah, we've got a speed limit already recognised and down to 10 mile an hour. So it's passed its first test. So let's head out onto the road. Interestingly, now it's gone up to 30 mile an hour, even though we haven't gone through a 30 mile an hour speed limit sign. So I'm not quite sure how it's come to that conclusion, but I'll take it because it recognised the 10 mile an hour sign without an issue. Now I'm just going through a national speed limit sign here to see A, if it recognises it, and B, what it changes. So I'm not convinced that recognised the national speed limit sign there, because that is different to a lot of the other systems. The national speed limit sign is obviously your white circle with the black line through it, not a significant number, and I think that used GPS data there rather than the recognising the sign, because interestingly it didn't display a visualization on the screen. So maybe that's something that they need to look at and update for future updates. Here we go, we've got a 30 sign coming up. Does it recognise it on both sides of the road? It does, and that's pretty accurate where that's rendered that. So it seems like when you got the number inside the circle, it's recognising that pretty easily and rendering it on the display, which is pretty cool. The lack of the speed sign was actually one of the massive limiting factors to that next step to full self-driving, because obviously if the car can't recognise speed limits, you can't risk sending a car out there to drive autonomously, because for roadworks it would be just storming through it at high speed, which obviously is not safe for anyone involved. Here we go, so we've got the 50 mile an hour speed limit sign coming up now, and yeah, it's recognised it no problem. And actually I think it changed the speed limit slightly sooner, as soon as it saw the car, which might address the issue that we have when it comes to coming into speed zones too quick. So we've got a temporary sign coming up here, a 40 on the left hand side. Let's see what it does with this. Visualizes it and changes the speed limit again. Perfect. So it's quite good at picking up, even though that 40 mile an hour speed limit was on the other side of the road, it was still quite good at picking that up and displaying on the screen, and then clearly interpreting that was the case. Got one hidden away over the back of the cones over here, so let's see if it recognises that. Yep, it's picked up on that, no problem. And unfortunately what I'm not going to get a chance to test today, because there aren't any nearby, is variable speed limit signs. So when you're going down the motorway and you've got those aerial variable speed limit signs, will it recognise those at all? So we're going to come down onto the motorway now. It's an average speed limit of 60, and we've got the speed limit signs now. It's recognised them. Did you see that? It rendered the fact that there were 60s, but it's kept our speed limit at 70. So right now, it's going to let me speed because it thinks that's still glitching in that software then. So we've got another 60 speed limit sign coming up here. Will it spot it and will it bring my speed limit down? No. So this is a big fail at the minute. I'm going to bring my speed limit down to 60, but we're on a 60 mile an hour zone, and this is what it's meant to be doing. It's meant to pick up that we're at a 60 through roadworks. Another 60 mile an hour over there on the right. No recognition, still would have me speeding through this section. And we've got another one coming up on the left. Let's see how it deals with this. But this will be really disappointing because this is the whole point of it. No. Right. So a kind of step forward with it, the fact it's recognising them, but then it appears that it's chosen to ignore the fact that it recognised it was a 60 because it rendered the 60 mile an hour sign, but then hasn't adjusted the speed limit accordingly. So what I'm going to do when I see, so there's a speed limit sign on the left there, when I see another one coming up on the right, I'll pull over to give it a really good opportunity to see the 60 mile an hour speed limit sign. There we go, we've got one coming up. So let's move over to that right hand side, or at least the middle lane, to give it a chance to identify it. Let's go all the way over because there's no traffic. So there you go, it's not identifying the speed limit signs as we go along, which is really disappointing because this is the whole point of it. So here we go, we're coming back onto the motorway, going the opposite direction. GPS data is going to tell us that the speed limit is 70, but the speed limit is actually 60. So it's recognised there's a big 60 sign here, and we're joining it. There's a bit of traffic, but yeah, so it's rendered, it's perfectly rendered. The speed limit was 60, drew the 60 on the screen, but we're still reading a speed limit of 70. So if you're coming on to roadworks and things like that, currently, although this is meant to be slowing you down and recognising it and adjusting, it's not going to do that in the UK. I'm not quite sure why it wouldn't do that because it rendered it on the screen as a 60 mile an hour. The other thing that's just crossed my mind, and I really want to catch this lorry up, is I wonder whether, I'm going to try and do this, I wonder whether it's got a speed limit sign written on the back to effectively say that vehicle is limited to such and such mile an hour. I wonder if I can catch that up, whether the Model 3 will actually interpret that as a speed limit sign. If it is, we're going to be very quick through these roadworks because it's got 90, which I'm guessing is kilometres per hour, written on the back because it's a European truck. So let's see, hopefully, I mean, it's rendering the lorry, so I'm going to guess that it's going to anticipate that that is not a speed limit sign if it's on the back of the lorry. So we crash into the back of it anyway. Yep, so there you go. It doesn't render speed limit signs on the back of lorries, which is good. At least they've identified that as a potential issue. So we'll head back through the roadworks, double check there's no issues with that, although it did manage it pretty well the first time around, so I wouldn't anticipate any big issues. Here we go, we've got the first 40 sign coming up, and this would normally be a 70, I think, down here. It's got it and changed the limit. No probs. We'll engage autopilot as well. But now look, the speed limit's just gone back up to 70. It's really, really hit and miss whether this is working or not. Let's hope they update this in a bug patch very soon. So I think I've pretty much done the speed traffic sign awareness to death there. We'll just see if it recognises 40 just out of curiosity. Oh, it does, look, it's up there. So that's not too bad. So it does recognise the smaller traffic speed signs, which is good. So what we'll do now, we'll experiment with setting the cruise control speed by tapping the center console. So normally what would happen is if I was to engage cruise control now, it would set my speed limit at 30 mile an hour, which I don't want to do because I'm quite happy going my 24 mile an hour. So I put it down once, tap the current speedometer that I'm going, and that will automatically set my speed to that limit that I'm going on, which is actually really helpful because there are some times when you're driving, say, in a 30, but actually you'd rather keep the speed down. Maybe schools are chucking out and it's 20 mile an hour is more appropriate. And it's quite handy just to tap that and let the car adjust its speed accordingly. Rather than, so like for example, if I was coming through here, there's no way I'd want to go through here at 30. So let's do that, tap it back down, and I'll carry on at my current speed. And it's nice because although I've tapped it and it initially set the speed limit at 30, it doesn't start accelerating for that short amount of time, which enables you time to reach across, tap the big, it's actually quite a big speed limit sign to set your speed. Right, I think that concludes the software update for that. I've not experimented with auto park, autopilot, and see if there's any changes there. I'll take the car for a spin a bit later on just to see whether those have been updated, because I did have issues where auto park was just parking in ridiculous places. So those are two nice features that have been added, but definitely that traffic speed limit sign needs work because it's recognised that it's just not linking with the car. And I'd anticipate that's a bug fix that they will send out a release very shortly to do that. But if there's any changes to autopilot, auto park, or anything like that, I will update you. If you're interested in Tesla Model 3s, I upload videos generally once a week, so click subscribe if you're interested in finding out more about those kind of videos. And if you like that little software update, give it a thumbs up, because a little bit of positive feedback is always nice. Other than that, I shall bid you farewell on this lovely sunny evening in the UK, and hopefully see you again soon.